Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. I'm your host, I'm Nemu. In honor of Native American Heritage Month, we have Irma Laguerre with us. Hello, Irma.
Hi.
So, Irma is an actress and storyteller. She's Aztec and Taino and an accomplished actress with many TV, film, and lead roles on Broadway. She recently did a role in the upcoming Black Panther 2, which comes out tomorrow, and Manifest Season 4. She can be seen in The Undoing on HBO and as a shaman medicine woman in Ray Donovan. Ms. Laguerre is acting director for the Children's Cultural Center of Native America, a program of Nitchen Inc., and has been involved in community work for over 30 years. She recently was a part of Storyteller Festival at Sugar Hill Children's Museum, the Echo Festival, and the Native American Playwright Festival. I am so impressed by all this work, and I can't wait to see the movie because you were telling me a little bit about the role that you were in, which I'm not going to
Yes, yes.
people, you have people have to go see it because it sounds like you have an amazing role in there. So, but before we get to how you even got involved in such an amazing film, tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Okay, I was born in a pueblo in Puerto Rico called Moca, Aguadilla, a small place, and I come from a very large family. And my father was transported there as an infant from his parents were Aztec. His father was Aztec, and he learned many many dialects. Of course he didn't teach any of them to us because when we came to the mainland, which was New York City, he felt that, well, actually my mother felt that it was best for us to assimilate into the American culture. So no speaking any dialects, no speaking Spanish. We had to speak and learn English because this is where we are. I come from a large family of it's 10 siblings, six brothers, four girls. Two have since passed away. And I had we are very close knit family, very close knit. When we first came to the mainland, to New York City, we were still we still were raised almost very indigenous like, because we still had um anything that happened, if anything would happen to us, my mother would go to her brother and like a council of elders, older people, and she would tell them their problem or our issue, and they would take care of it. They would secretly take care of it. It's very fascinating. But I came here from the island when I was 5 years old. 5 years old, that's when I arrived.
When you talk about the way that your family life is, it really resembles how Chaldeans and even most Arab communities actually, where they take care of each other, they take care of their own, and they take care of each other. And I have many Native American friends, and I think that part of the attraction was that similarity. There's so many similarities. Like my friends talk about the clan system and how they have to take care of each other. It was just, and almost living in ways that are similar to how our village life used to be, but not necessarily any
Yes,
longer in a
yes.
village.
It's a village. Everybody knows everyone. Everyone takes care of each other's children or whatever. My grandmother was the midwife for the pueblito. She was the midwife. So it's a quick story. So I was born in the house. I was born in the house, and I wasn't registered. So my grandmother was the midwife. She came in, she helped my mother. My mother had me, and then that later that afternoon, she was fine, so she went out to the fields to work, right? Now, my grandmother was the one that was, like I said, she was the midwife, but she never registered any of the children that were born. So one day, the people from the municipal came in and they said, "Where did all these children come from?" And my grandmother said, "Oh, well, they were born, you know, they were just born." And I was in charge of taking, doing the births. And they said, "Well, you're going to have to register them. If you don't register them, you're going to be fined." So my grandmother said, "Okay." So she hopped on her horse, rode her horse into town, went to the registry, signed us up, and gave us all whatever birth dates she could remember. So none of us have the correct birth dates.
So, Irma, this is starting to sound more and more like my family. So, I was born in a house. I wasn't registered the same day. My paternal aunt was a midwife, but from a very large area in Iraq that was called the Fallujah. And we were registered later, but that was actually the story of most Iraqis. So that's where the difference is, that it was like kind of normal. But yeah, we were, my mom gave birth to 12 and only 10 survived. And I was the last one to be born in the house before my younger brother. He was born in a hospital. But see what I mean? I think there's that feeling, there's that sense, there's like that tribal, in a positive way. Sometimes tribal has a negative connotation, but not in the way that I observe Native Americans um, live, or in the way that we do. It's kind of like just taking care of each other. That's why, that's
Yeah.
what the label is
and and
associated.
and also during at that time when she did register us, the birth certificates were had race. You had to put down the race of the child. It's not like that anymore. But I have a number of birth certificates. My first birth certificate, my race has me down as mestiza. The
And what is,
second, mestiza, which means a mix, a mezcla, a mix.
okay.
Indian, black, Latin, like that. Then the next one has me down as mulatto. My next birth certificate, because I couldn't find my first one, so I've got another birth certificate, and the race on it was mulatto, and they put my father down as negro.
Oh, and
Yes, and they put my mother down as mestiza. And then the last birth certificate that I got had my father down as indio. So it's like they couldn't figure it out. They didn't know what to do. So now my latest birth certificate, because I had to get a new birth certificate because the government of Puerto Rico and the United States says that so many people were doing fraudulent birth certificates coming into the island from
um,
other islands and saying that they were from Puerto Rico. So
okay.
now there's a new type of birth certificate that it has ingrained in it some kind of numerical markings that now that new birth certificate has no race on it. It just has who my parents were, and that's it.
Well, we were talking before we started the interview, and you were telling me a little bit of the challenging life that you led when as a child, but and then the generosity of your mom. If you can, what if you could share that a little bit with us, because I feel like it's so important to get a background on that before we go into how you got involved in this career, because it's interesting that you went, from one place in your life to being where you are, very successful today, and doing so much service for others. So please tell us about your childhood
Well,
and that aspect, and how did you end up where you are today?
community service is something that is part of our life, our family life. And it stems from my mother. My mother was always been a very caring, supportive, kind individual. She would go, there was a time where she would go out, and we had a few homeless women that would be living out from the street, and my mom would go outside, pick these women up, bring them into our apartment, bathe them, clothe them, give them food, and then send them on the way. And always told them, if you need anything, just come back right here. Okay, I'm here for you. I can take care of you. It's not a problem. And she would always have food and go right to them and give them food. My mom always did it. My mom was one of those people that always picked up people. We always had all kinds of people living in our apartment, all kinds of people, because that's just the way she was. She was so endearing, so kind. And also there was a time when there would be a lot of heroin was very rampant in the neighborhood. It was just all over the place, and we had so many addicts around. We lived in a flat, which was a railroad flat in East Harlem, front door, back door, leading to the back door. We were on the top floor, so that the back door had a staircase that led up to the roof. Well, the young men and women that would come there to do heroin and drugs, I would watch them all the time. And my mother told us that if they ever come to the apartment, give them whatever they want. Put a chain if that makes you safer, but no, they're not going to hurt you. Just give them water if they need water, give them food if they need food. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. So that's what I did. So I learned all that from that. And my oldest brother was a very a community minded person that we would spend a lot of times bringing in people to clean the neighborhood, clean the streets, paint the street. It was like summer in the city. We had all these incredible programs, and a lot of them were our family was very much involved in that. And that's just a little bit history of where my community minded
Well,
comes from.
the service and the blessings. I was telling you, I feel, when you were sharing the stories about your mom, I'm like, oh, this is, I believe in that. I believe that the seeds that our parents and our grandparents, they put, goes into the next generation and the next generation, and it seems like it has blessed your life. But how did you end up, what drew you to the act becoming an actress? What drew you to that path?
Before all that, I loved music. I love singing. It was just so I just loved it. My mother used to sing. She used to take the guitar and play folkloric music, all the old time music, especially in the holidays. She would sing aguinaldos, they were called. They're folkloric in origin, and she would sing them, and she will make up the words and make up the music. And I would listen to her, and I would say, I was loving it. I said, I wanna sing too. So, but I went a different route. See, she was doing folkloric and Latin music, and I decided that I was gonna do opera, which was a little strange for my family because they kept telling me, but that's European. Why are you doing opera? That's not who we are. You should sing our music. And I said, yeah, but I really love the stage, the grandness of it. I want to be up there and sing. I want to do all that. And she was like, oh,
That
okay.
sounded great, by the way. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to
really.
do a song right
Yeah. So I would and I started to become be involved in glee clubs around the city, like the high school glee club. There, the what do they call? I don't remember the name of it. All City. It was the All City Chorus, and I became part of that. And then I graduated from high school when I was 16, which was pretty young to go to college. And then I was going to go to college, but I wasn't sure, and I was so young. So I decided I would go to Bronx Community College and be a biology major and just, dabble in music. I
like
got
on the
my
side as a hobby type of thing.
Yeah, and then I did a bet with one my biology professor, and I said, I think I'm going to try for Manhattan School of Music for the conservatory. Let's see what happens. He says, you're never going to get in there because you don't do any music. You don't know how to read or write music or do anything. You've never done this before. And I said, oh yes, I can get in. I bet you I can get in. He says, okay, let's see. I was already an A student. He said he'll give me a higher grade point if I can get in. But guess what? I auditioned for Manhattan School of Music and I got in with a full scholarship
Oh, wow.
as an opera major.
You showed him.
Yes, and he was like, "Whoa!" So from there, from a Bronx community, I went straight into opera at the conservatory. Now, once I started to do opera and started to do the theater, opera theater, I noticed, I said, "Oh, I like acting. I like being on stage. I love it." I'm not sure quite how much I love the opera. I do like the grandeur of it. I love it, but I don't know. So I decided to. We had no musical theater at the school at the time. So I said, okay. So I graduated from there. I did my bachelor's and my master's. And then I got a call from Jerome Robbins' office to audition for the revival of West Side Story, to do the role of that Rary Gris had done. She was an opera singer and went on, and she's the one that sings, "There's a place for us." She sings this beautiful song in West Side Story. And I said, okay, I would do that. I loved it. But then I had one semester to go to finish my master's degree. So I turned it down because I knew that I would never go back to school. If I started my career, I won't go back. And then I stayed there, and then I auditioned for The King and I, that was coming to Broadway with Yul Brynner,
Mhm.
with 500 other women. And then it came down to like about four of us. And I was one of the four. I walked in, I never forget it. I walked in, I did my audition, I walked out. The producer came out. He says, "Could you wait a minute?" And I said, "Okay." I waited a minute. All the other singers left. They brought me back in. It says, "We'd like to offer you the role of Lady Tiang." And I said, "What?" I said, "Okay, thank you." I was excited. I walked out. The first thing I did was call my mother. I called my mom, and she couldn't believe it. Everybody was elated. My whole community was so excited. Here she is, this young girl, you know, doing her graduating so young from the conservatory, now having her big break to be on Broadway in a major role. And then that's when I decided that I wanted to do television. From there, I started to move a totally separate direction because I really wasn't getting the work that I wanted in opera theater. It
Mhm.
was very, tight knit community. I wasn't getting what I wanted. So I left that and I decided to start pursuing commercial. I started getting commercials and I loved it. Then a little by little started to get a little role here, a little role there. And I go, oh, I love this. This is what I wanted to say. And then I decided that's it. This is where I'm going to be. I'm going to start doing theater and television and film. And this is where I've stayed.
So your story is different in that it doesn't seem that you went through this struggle because it was felt so natural. I mean, for you to just send for the Manhattan School of Music, or and then just to be accepted when your teacher felt like, how, what background do you have in that?
Well,
And the
the
same in
only
acting too. It just seems like for you, most stories there's a struggle involved in it, but in your case it felt so natural. It just seems like you were just fitting into these roles.
because I was driven. That's the thing. You have to be driven. I was driven to succeed. I was driven. I knew that I wanted this so bad. I had to do it. The only hardship that I had was financial because you have to pay for your applications. And my
Mm.
mother was, poor. We were not we were a very humble family. We didn't have that money. So I had to get the money from my mother, who was at the time, she was a factory worker. She used to, there was a thing called piecework where she would work in a factory cutting strings, ironing in that huge iron. And she struggled because she knew that I wanted it so bad. So she helped me to pay for a few applications, not too many, because I did audition for other conservatories, and frankly I got into all of them. but I decided that I was going to take Manhattan School of Music. And I was fortunate enough to get a full scholarship. But I did work very hard, and I auditioned with a German aria from the magic. It was from the Magic Flute, Pamina's aria. I knew no German. I knew no music. I listened. All I spent was the whole time in the library just listen. I listened. I listened. I practiced. I listened. That's all I did. And I went to the audition in front of this judge, this panel of esteemed voice teachers, and I sang Pamina's aria. It just so happens that year was Mozart year. And the Magic Flute was written by Mozart. And I did Pamina's aria, and I did it in my broken German, but they liked it.
So it didn't just fall into your lap. There was work involved, and there were
Oh, lots of
sacrifices.
work.
Okay.
Lots of work. There was a lot of studying that I had to do. There was a lot, and then, and then of course, I come from a large family, so I still have to do my work with the family,
Mhm.
helping out. And then of course there is, my mother having to work hard to pay for all the applications. So that was quite a struggle. We lived in East Harlem, in El Barrio, in a flat, and my mother had but so much money. True, at that time rents were like 60, $80 a month, but it was a lot for her.
And did you find that throughout your career you had to hold on to a job as you were doing these acting roles
Yes,
beside?
always have to have that day job, that survival job, because I wasn't getting work after work after work after, it
And also,
wasn't like
doesn't it, I think when you're having a regular steady income, it helps you not feel like desperate or attached to a certain outcome, and then
no,
that way you can be more relaxed when the opportunities come to you.
yes, and remember that even though I had a full scholarship, I still had to take out a loan because I still had to live. And
Mhm.
also I was working as a waitress and working at night and in the afternoon, and have to get up in the morning to go to school, to go to college. So I had my struggles. I
Mhm.
had a lot of my,
Juggling a lot of things,
pardon me,
juggling a lot of
a
things.
lot. I had to juggle a lot of things, a
Yeah.
lot, and constantly look for work. I had to make sure I was always employed, because even though I had that scholarship, there was still other fees that I needed my books. I
Mhm.
needed to take piano lessons to help me with my singing. I
Mhm.
had to do that. I was very fortunate that my brother happened to come along one day. He said a friend of mine got rid of this piano. We brought it for you. Here's a piano. So and to this day I still have that
You have
piano.
that piano. So you've invested a lot of your into yourself, but you've also utilized what's around you, and
Yes.
which brought you to being, like I said, so tomorrow,
Yeah.
yay, the Black Panther 2 is coming out. You're in it. Just tell us whatever you can about that. That is so
Okay. I
exciting.
can
And how
tell you
did you
only a
feel when
little.
you had the role? Whatever you can. I know that you're limited on what you can tell us, so we have to keep
Yeah.
suspense until we watch it.
Yeah, it
Well,
was
you can
I
tell
won't
us.
forget about it. I know that what they did tell me was the audition itself was we need to know if you're afraid of water. And I said, "No, why would I be afraid of water? Water is life." And they said, and then they said, okay, because they wanted me to videotape that. And that was the only question they had for me for the audition, because there are no lines. I have no speaking lines in this role in Wakanda, but they wanted me to videotape myself talking about myself, what I do, how do I feel about water, all that stuff. And that was an easy audition, because I like to talk about myself. Who doesn't? And all my experiences. And I did say to them very clearly, how can I be afraid of water? Because water is life. And I think they must have liked that, because the next thing I knew, my agent's calling me. He says, okay, they want Marble wants you. You're going to be Namor's mother. And I said, what? What? You know? And I said, yeah, I'll go. Absolutely. But I mean, I didn't know what to expect because they don't tell you anything because everything is hush, hush, and secret, secret. So all they told me was it'll be Neymar's mother and get on a plane in 2 days, be in California. We'll have people here lined up to train you to help you. And and then we shoot on one day shooting, then the next day you can go home back to New York.
All
And I
you
said, okay.
knew at that point, all you knew was that whatever question they asked you, that, I mean, you had
All
no.
I knew was that it had to do a little bit with water. That's it. That's all. And that it was going to be and that I was going to be Namor's mom,
Mhm,
older mom, because there's two moms. The younger version, which is a young, beautiful Mayan actress from Guatemala,
mhm.
and she's the birthing mother. And then I play the older mother. And the scene was very demanding. Let me tell you again, it was very demanding. One of the most demanding roles I've ever done. And this is a role that with no lines, but it was very demanding. But I loved it, and it was quite an accomplishment for me. Quite the accomplishment that I was able to do this particular scene, at which you'll see tomorrow.
Yes, I mean it does. That's why I'm so excited that, you told me a little bit about it. Of course, I'm not gonna share. I'm excited because I got a really, like, a little bit of a glimpse of how demanding it is. And it's interesting. Each film has its own story, and the way they cast this, it's its own
Hmm.
way. And they sensed from your response that you have a relationship with water. They understood that when you responded that way, it's like she gets it, and yeah, we can help work with her on that. Um, so, with the other works that you've done, including being a shaman medicine woman and Ray Donovan, now that you prepared differently. How was preparing for that differently, and how does it feel for you playing, being able to play these indigenous roles? What does it mean to you?
I think it's really important that when a role is when a role is written for an indigenous performer, then you should first contact the indigenous performers. Don't go to them last. Because I never forget the time that one director, when I did One Darien, um, a director had told me, "How do you feel about um, being cast, the role being not cast as a native, even though it's written for a native?" And I said, well, then I feel that I, I don't think that's a good thing. I think that if there are actresses that can do the indigenous role, they should get the opportunity firsthand to do the role. I know that when I did the shaman role in Ray Donovan, I had to study it because I had to also sing a song in the production, and I wanted to be as accurate as possible. So I did go to a few neighborhood people that I knew that were from Peru, that lived pretty close to the Amazon and knew the language, Quechua, and I was able to speak to them and talk to them so that they can explain to me how best to do the song and how best to act as a shaman. But the interesting thing about it is that the production crew hired uh, a woman to come in to teach me the song and to teach me how to do the native role. Unfortunately, the woman that they hired was non-native to teach a native person how to be a native, a non-native. And I said, "Wait a minute, you've been hired to teach me as an indigenous person how to be indigenous?" And they said, "Yes, because I've been to the Amazon, and I've been taught by the greatest shamans." And I said, "But you're not indigenous." And she says, "Yeah, but I've been taught, and I can teach you how to do this." And I said, "No, you cannot teach me how to do it. You can't tell me how to do my people's stuff. And on top of that, I am not going to do a sacred song on film. There's no way I'm going to do it. So I will speak to, and I went and I spoke to the director and I told him, I said, listen, you want me to do an indigenous song, and it's a sacred song. I, I can't do it. I refuse to do it. I cannot do it. And it was to his credit that he said, okay, that's fine. You don't have to do it.
Sometimes you wonder the idea behind this. I mean, just sometimes you think it's common sense that if somebody is going to come and train you, regardless of how much, that's like a woman living in the Middle East, even if she lived there for decades versus one that's born there, growing up within the community. And we've had that same struggle, Irma, where feeling that we have the talent. When I worked on my film, we had we didn't even know. We were like trying to choose. I mean, we chose what was perfect for us, and we were so lucky that each um, each actor represented the role, the community that it was being played from. But
Yes,
there was plenty there, so I thought there was no reason not to choose people from their own communities, because there's
exactly.
no shortage of talent, and that always surprises me. But this is even, I think, on a worse level, to be honest, about being trained in that sense, when you are and kind of like a little bit of an insulting, but
And yes, it was insulting because I remember I was in my trailer waiting for this particular person to come to train me. And
mhm,
I see this Caucasian woman walking back and forth. And I said, hi. And because I say hi to everybody, she goes, hi. And then she says, are you Irma? And I said, yes, I am. She said, oh, I'm here to train you for the role. And I said, okay. Are you from Peru? Are you indigenous? And she goes, no. And I said, what?
yeah,
How can you teach me how to be an indigenous person?
yeah.
Oh, because I trained with shamans. So I told the director, I said, why didn't you hire an indigenous person? Why? There's so many.
There's That's my right. That's the main thing. There really is a lot. It's not There is no shortage. That's the point that people don't
Exactly.
get. It's another thing if this is the only person on earth that can do this. But there are people really waiting to be given these opportunities. And
Yes.
for me, I think your story sheds light to that. Dis, Despite your background and getting where you got today, and having that, seeing how, because if it's the drive, the hard work, there's I don't want to say there's no excuse, but really, because we came here also, we came with nothing because we couldn't bring anything with us. And what we had to go through. So in this country, there is that opportunity for people to know that if you believe in something, and if you want it to happen, and if you want it to happen authentically, we have that power to do that. And I think you exemplify that by your life, and by the blessings that your family has left for you, and by the hard work that placed you in such a strong role and in a powerful film.
And the struggle continues.
And the struggle continues. But you're happy. You're like, the struggle continues, but I'm ready. You look very ready for it, Irma.
Yes, yes. As I get older and older, I'm getting more of the roles as I'm older, as opposed to
Wonderful.
when I was younger, when I was
Wonderful.
ready. But then when I was younger, I refused to do nudity, and that's what they wanted me to do.
Mhm.
In my 20s,
And now you don't have to deal
I
with
want
that.
yeah, I didn't want to do any movie or anything like that. So it took me out of the picture, because when producers and directors see someone who is exotic looking, and all, they want to see them they want them to be naked for whatever reason. It brings more, they feel it
An
brings more
audience,
substance to their
right?
movie, more audience to their movie. But I told them, I'm not doing that.
You
That's
stood your
one thing
ground.
I want. That's one. I said, I have 6 brothers. Folks said,
You stood your ground, and you still now have work. So it didn't cost you,
yeah,
obviously, that
yes.
much.
I mean, it was a slow process, mind you.
Yeah.
It's been a slow process, but
I mean, it
but
could
I'm
have been
I'm
a slow
still
process either way, but at least you went with what you believed in.
I
So
did, and I always do, and I will always continue to do that, to go with what I believe and what is right for me. That's right.
So thank you so much, Irma. I mean,
You're
my
welcome.
last words to the audience is Black Panther 2 comes out tomorrow. Go do see it. I think given the actually you've mystified your role so much and it's like become suspenseful. It's like people want to go just to see that role. What is that thing with water? But yeah, go do see it. Thank you so much for the interview. God bless. Have a
God bless
wonderful
you
day,
too.
everybody. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Bye.